Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast, where on tonight's show, we're going to be dissecting that much needed win against Forest on Saturday. Joining me for the task are the regulars, Dan and Craig. Dan, mate, how are we?
Yeah, all good.
Good stuff, Craig?
Mate, much better than the previous episodes we've done.
Exactly. I mean, it's been pretty horrific in recent weeks, but Saturday was much needed. We're going to get onto that. But just before we get going, guys, I mentioned a few episodes ago about how we want people in the comments interacting with the episodes, asking us questions, and we could potentially take them into the next episode. The first video that I did got a great response. We had about 15, 20 comments in the comment section. But since then, don't know where it's gone. So please keep dropping the comments so that we can interact and we can build this little community within the fan base that we've got going on, because that's just good. It's good for the growth of the podcast. It's good for us to know what you guys want from the podcast, so on and so forth. Just before we get going as well, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, tell a friend about the podcast, and also give us a follow on our socials as at the Elam Road on Twitter and at Elam Road Pod on Instagram. Let's just get straight into Forest. Dan, before we get down to the goals, how needed was that win on Saturday?
Oh, very much needed. I mean, 5 defeats in a row, 1 win in 8 before that. Was getting a bit too close to the bottom 3 for my liking. Yeah, so definitely needed. I'd like to be able to enjoy the second half of the season without us getting too close to that dotted line. I don't want us to get to the end of that end of the season relying on potential points deductions.
Exactly.
I want to see us, stay above that line comfortably, even if they didn't have the points deductions or that they might get. So, yeah, massive, just to give us a bit of breathing space again.
Craig, it's felt like such a long time since we've actually won a game of football. You echoing, Dan?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It was so massively needed, especially with the run of games that we've got coming up. The next 5 games are incredibly difficult, with City twice, Liverpool at home, Spurs away, and Wolves, who for some reason we can't beat at the minute. It's just such a weight lifted off the shoulders, and it was so enjoyable at full time. Just a pure moment of relief, it felt like.
100%. Let's go through the goals, Craig. I'll come straight back to you as our goalkeeper union on the Elam Road podcast. Could Flecken have done any better with Danilo's opener? I've seen a few things on Twitter. I mean, as soon as it went in, I knew that he'd be getting grief. Yeah. People saying I give him the benefit of the doubt because I think he sees it quite late. I think there's quite a few bodies in front of him, but I have seen people say that he could have sorted his feet out a bit quicker. Twitter jury's out for Flecken once again. What was your take on the goal?
First things first, let's not take anything away from the goal, because it was a fantastic finish. The control on his thigh, and then he puts it in the bottom corner. It was a fantastic finish. From where we are in the West Stand, we're just slightly to the left of the goal, and it looked like he got there. From where we were, it looked like he got there because he dropped to his knees, and it was almost as if he thought it was going wide. And then when you see it from the angle of behind the goal or from behind the person who took the shot, it's nestled itself right in that bottom corner. And again, I think it's one of those ones where if he had made a full effort for it, he wouldn't have saved it anyway. But what's getting frustrating is I've stuck up for him for so long, and the fact he just drops to his knees when these things happen, it's starting to frustrate me. And it's getting difficult for me to keep sticking up for him when it feels like he's just making the wrong decision.
Never thought I'd see the day where Craig is actually maybe getting a little bit frustrated with Flecken, but it seems like there's a bit of a weird one as well, because it's like, even in watching it in real time, I know that it shouldn't make a difference, but if he dives and if he actually tries to make an effort, I don't feel like he'd be getting as much stick.
It don't look good.
It doesn't make it look any better if you just kind of get on your knees and slide towards the shot instead of actually diving. But
I don't think it's one that
he put in.
Go on, Dan.
I don't think it's one that like you expect him to save, but it's one that perhaps sometimes keeper might pull off that type of save, but because he doesn't seem to like fully stretch himself out, and he's almost like turning as he's diving because he's like seeing it going past him. And it just doesn't look good. And I feel like I want to see a few more where he, maybe does pull off the save in those situations. Not every time, just, now and then. A bit more often than he does.
Agreed.
I've just got one last thing to say about him. he needs to start earning us some points. He needs to make either a match-winning save or a match-saving save. But at the moment, he's not doing that. Now, be it... Let's also address the fact that was some shoddy defending for their first goal.
Janelt, bloody hell, stinker.
A terrible clearance from Janelt, which has gone straight up, and a header which has gone just to the edge of the box. It wasn't out, wasn't cleared. It just dropped to their player on the edge of the box. He's put it in the bottom corner. But I think he should be doing better. Doing better. Yeah,
100%. I think there's been a few goals like that where the defending's been pretty terrible, but Flecken either doesn't try to save it or makes a mistake, and then we're all blaming Flecken. But it has to be said, Janelt's clearance there, further proof that Christian Norgard should be in Brentford coats and Janelt should be in elite Callum. If you're listening, mate, absolutely horrendous take. Anyway, let's carry on. Let's go to the Toney goal, makes it 1-1. We'll talk about his return in more detail once we've kind of rattled through the goals. But there has been some noise in the Forest camp about the nature of Toney's equaliser. They've submitted a formal complaint to PGMOL saying that VAR should have had a look at it. Dan, I know we're slightly biased being Brentford fans, but they should probably be looking at one, Matt Turner in goal, not sorting his wall out once Toney's actually made the angle. And two, the wall itself. I can't believe that Toney's been able to move the ball over to the right, so much so that he now can pass straight through that gap and he just scores. I was saying to someone after the game, I felt like anyone on the team could have scored that goal. Obviously, you back Toney to score that goal more than anyone else, but it was fairly simple. So the Forest butthurt, Dan, is just driving me mental. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I honestly, genuinely would have been very surprised if Ivan Toney didn't score on Sunday. I have never gone into a game thinking someone's going to score so much. And obviously, he's done enough interviews recently, and he's bigged himself up that if he didn't turn up, then it wouldn't have been great for him. Yeah, it was a weird goal. I mean, his last goal was also a free kick against Forest, which is just a bit of strange irony as well. But yeah, it's because the keeper's so far standing at the other side of the goal. All he has to do is put it into the corner. And I think with regards to moving the ball a little bit, I can't imagine that doesn't happen every week somewhere. And we're only drawing attention to it because the wall weren't enough over to cater for it. Because why would the wall need to be anywhere the other way anyway? You should go further than you need to go. Because the keeper is covering one side and the wall's covering the other side. So yeah, because I don't even think he had to curl it. I think he just hit it almost straight into the goal. Yeah, but I don't necessarily rate Matt Turner either, so it doesn't surprise me. I think he's dropped a few clangers this season. So
many. I think if you look at the replies, the
and
Forest,
their wall was in front of their line.
I know,
well.
yeah. It's some of the Forest fans they were saying about how shit Matt Turner was before the game. And you're right, he's had some big clangers this season. But I feel like, Craig, we really needed that bit of shithousery. And I know that Ivan and Neil up top, we got a glimpse of it on Saturday. I tweeted after the game, when I was watching the game back on Sky, Neil Maupay has a word with Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney grabs him and whispers something in his ear. And Neil Maupay goes off to, I think it was maybe Murillo, and winds him up. So the referee starts to break it up. And in that point, Tony's already moving the ball. So he's not focused on where the ball actually is. But Craig, we need that little partnership up top. It gives me flashbacks. So, that Brentford compilation where that season we were just the biggest shithouses in the league. Yep. Neil Maupay was stamping on people. We were getting penalties. Molly Watkins diving at Barnet away. But I feel like with those two up top, Craig, I feel like we're going to cause some havoc.
Look, I'm sure Ivan said it in, it might have been this guy or the Daily Mail, whichever fucking interview it was he did, where he says, he gets asked, no, it might have been with Stu actually, he asked about playing with Neil Maupay and he says, yeah, we'll get a few players sent off. And you could just see in that match that they're going to get in a few teams' heads. They're going to rattle a few teams out there. And Forest were one of them because they were losing their heads by the end of it. But yeah, you're right. Ivan definitely said something to Neil and just can't distract the referee for a minute while I do this. And then after, I will probably go into it as well, but after Neil scores and Neil starts running up to their players going, handball, handball. And Ivan has to kind of go, all right, mate, let's go. But yeah, mate, I'm looking forward to them two playing together. I do like a bit of shithousery when it's not against us.
Yeah, you know, that's not the first time Neil's done that as well. I remember ages ago, I think we played Millwall at home, and I think it was Sawyers that scored. And as soon as the ball hits the back of the net, Morpay runs straight up to their centre back, who's about double his height as well. Just starts giving it to him. So I love the man, and we're going to talk about Neil in more detail because I feel like with what he did with the Penguins on Sunday, I've got a bit of a bold statement, and the way he talks about the club. But I digress. We'll come on to that later. Dan, Ben Mee back in the side, back amongst the goals, does offer that aerial presence from set pieces. I think he mentioned in this post-match, the Brentford post-match, that it was kind of a perfect set piece. But I more probably criticised the Forest defending for letting someone like Ben Mee just run across his man like that at the front post, but still, we'll take it.
Yeah, I think the way we kind of plan set pieces is like someone acts as a blocker and then Ben Mee runs round. But yeah, it was a flying header, great goal, and he has a knack of doing that. And he's not the biggest centre back, so yeah, he's just got a knack of doing that. It must be his positioning and things like that. And obviously, it's valuable having him back in the defence as well, especially next to someone like Collins who can learn off him. Because obviously Ben Mee comes with all that experience, and yeah, it was unlike him to get sent off against Villa, and it harmed us a little bit, both in that game and since then. Because I thought it was a bit of a silly challenge he made, but yeah, unlike him, and he's back now, and yeah, that was brilliant header.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much we can say about their second goal. Really good ball from Hudson-Odoi. Good movement from Chris Wood, to be fair. Tias, if you're listening, we should have got him on loan because he's been fucking on fire this season. Just before the goal, though, Craig, I do want to talk about Mikael Damsgaard. I don't want to say bottling, but definitely shying away from a potential goal-stopping tackle. I can't remember the Forest player that was there, but I feel like the Forest player kind of gets the better of him. But not about the goal. Let's talk about Damsgaard, Craig, because I know you're a big fan of his, but I have seen some different opinions floating about as they do when Brentford play. Some people think he had a great game. Some people think he had a shit game. So what was your thoughts on his performance?
I didn't think he had a shit game, but I also wouldn't go as far as to say he had a fantastic game. He kind of did his job for me. Now, there are instances like the one you just mentioned where maybe his build and things like that doesn't allow him to put in the heavy challenges that we want him to put in. Because if he runs into someone, he's the one getting hurt, not the other people. So it's to ask him to put that kind of challenge in isn't something that you would expect from a player like Mikael Damsgaard. But I think that he had a good game. Didn't have a great game, didn't have a bad game. It was just a good game. But you know me, I like him. I want him to do well. He's that player that I'm just wishing for success for. And I'm hoping sooner rather than later that he gets a goal because I can't wait for the day.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, what do you think? I think I saw someone say that he's living off that Fulham at home performance last season. And since then, he's not had a game that's above like a 8 out of 10. I'm still not utterly convinced by him. When I saw the team sheet, I actually thought De Silva, after two good performances against Wolves in the Cup, thought he might warrant that place in the number 10 where Damsgaard was playing. But I know that Frank's been utilising De Silva on the right so far since his comeback from injury. But Dan, what did you make of Damsgaard?
I think he's still living off the Euros a couple of years ago. That was his last goal still. I think it doesn't help that he came to Brentford with that kind of high profile, because about a year before we signed him, obviously he had the injury in the year in between the Euros and signing. He was like one of the biggest properties in Europe, and like Barcelona and all sorts of clubs are looking at him. So that doesn't help. I want more from him. I can't say he stood out against on Sunday, but I also don't think he had a terrible game like Craig. But yeah, I just want more from him. And this is his time to perform. When we've got injuries and players out, and he's going to be starting a lot of the games, this is the time he needs to perform, because otherwise, when players come back, he won't get in the team. And he might be one that we end up seeing just leave, and at some point we might accept that it's not worked. I think obviously with De Silva, we're lacking wingers at the moment. You can see how we can play off the right and cut in. I thought we'd line up in a back four actually, with Reguilon at left back and with De Silva, Lewis Potter, and Toney. And I think that might have worked a bit better. I definitely said that after 2 minutes when they were 1-0 up. But yeah, I want more from Damsgaard.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's talk about Neil Maupay bagging the winner. Goal that gets better and better every time you watch it. I don't think we need to talk about how good the goal was because we've all seen it now hundreds of times. But what I was alluding to earlier with Maupay is that I really feel like he has the potential, and I don't want to go all tier list on you boys because we've already done that. But he has the potential, and we did it for a couple of hours as well. By the time that recording ended, I was like, good. That I think anything over 2 hours. Anyway, potential to become the ultimate Brentford GOAT. You've seen him down at the Penguins the next day. He speaks so highly about the club. Like I love all of the quotes that I'm seeing saying how much he loves the fans, proper football. He thrives off that. And I hope to God that we make it permanent, Craig.
There were people a few games ago saying, nah, don't make it permanent, don't make it permanent. But then you see moments of pure magic, like that goal which he scored. What a touch, what a turn. It puts it in the bottom corner. And then, like you said, the next day he's out with the Penguins and he's supporting that whole program that Brentford have got going on that side of things as well. And I don't think you're out of whack saying that he's got potential to be one of our not best ever players, but one of the. I feel like it shows. I know he left. Funnily enough, he left. He went to Brighton. He went to Everton. But it just feels like he has a loyalty to Brentford, and you don't feel that with very many players anymore. When you see a player who, from the moment they step onto the pitch to the moment they step off the pitch, is happy to wear the shirt and is happy to put his contributions into the football club off the pitch as well. He's a Brentford legend already, mate. We don't have to wait any more for that. He's just everything that the club is what he is.
Yeah, I think the commentator, I was watching it back as well, saying a moment of rare quality from Neil Maupay. I thought that was quite funny.
He quoted that. I don't know if you saw that on his Twitter or Instagram afterwards. Yeah, he said rare quality.
I was thinking when he saw that, he scored a very not too similar, but was his goal against Villa away fairly similar to that? Do you remember that one when he kind of touches it down and smashes it into the top of the net? Was that not a similar one?
No, he don't touch it. He don't touch it.
Like he turned.
Did he not touch it down?
I think he gets what knocked back and he just levers it.
Oh. All right. Well, still a quality finish on his weak foot. I thought it was really good. leads me on to the next question nicely. Dan, we've already kind of mentioned the Toney Neil link up. How did you think they played together on Saturday?
Yeah, well, obviously first Ivan Toney on his own. It just reminds us how good he is. Like he was by far the best player on the pitch, not just his goal scoring. I mean, he only had the one shot and obviously it went in. But just obviously his presence, it was nice to be able to have a target up front again. It was, his passing. Obviously, he passed it out to Roslev for the third goal. You can see how Maupay can like run off him a bit like Mbumo does. It would be nice if Maupay had a bit more pace to do that, maybe slightly better. But you can see that they're both going to be a handful. And I think it might benefit Maupay because defenses might naturally focus more on Toney, and that might give him a bit more space up there. But obviously, when we play a 5, I do expect us to go back to a 4 at some point, especially against the non-big 6. And then obviously, I expect probably Maupay to drop out of the team then. So I'm not sure it's a long-term solution, but I mean, they had a good game. I don't think Maupay would be scoring that goal too often. The commentator said, but you know,
it's a good point you make though about when we play in a 5, Toney will obviously occupy a lot of their defense. Then he gives Maupay a little bit more room to operate. So definitely one to watch in terms of when we play teams that aren't in the big 6. We'll get on to our next game against Tottenham towards the end of the episode. Craig, I want to ask you just a general question about the game. I know Toney was great and it was billed to be this massive Ivan Toney return. We did the Undertaker thing before kickoff, which was a little bit cringe. But Did you think it lived up to the hype, Craig? I thought Forest were actually equal to us for large parts of that game. I know I recorded a voice note for a Forest podcast. I don't know when that's coming out, but I said it was probably a game that I thought actually could have gone either way in terms of the result. I don't know if I'm being too generous to Forest there, Craig. What do you think?
Look, we're absolutely milked the shit out of Ivan Toney coming back. All of the videos, everything, and then a billboard pops up over social media saying he's back, and then the Undertaker thing comes around. Look, I after everything that I saw before that game, I envisaged him getting sent off or doing his ACL or something like that. I'm so glad that didn't happen. But after we built it up so much, saying the king has returned, blah blah blah, yeah. Do you know what? I didn't expect a 5-goal game. I thought we might nick it 2-0, 2-0, 3-0. He'll get on the score sheet. It was inevitable that he was going to score. Like Dan said, if there was one player that you knew was going to score in one game, it was Ivan Toney scoring in that game. But, you know, anyone watching that game as a neutral, to see a Premier League game ended 3-2, I thought it was a really good game. It was very end-to-end, very attacking from both teams. Yeah, it could have gone either way. And we got, which never happens to us, the rub of the green, where we're the team that comes away with the 3 points, you know. I did have a couple of concerns coming out of the game. Although we won, I was a little bit concerned where it feels like teams don't have to work very hard to score against us. We've touched on it already. A bit of sloppy defending from Yanal and Ben Mee were not a great clearance. And then we're playing 3 centre-backs and we get split by a ball in and a free header for their centre-forward to make it 2-2 at that point. I feel like all it's done is kind of identify the frailties that we have in different areas across the pitch. Yeah, but I know we spoke about him earlier on, but I just want to touch on how more confident I felt with the ball at Flecker's feet when he had someone to aim to. So all season, he's been trying to put the ball on the head of someone who isn't taller than 5'10". So be that Wissa, be that Mboma, be that Maupay, be that KLP. Now he's got Ivan. Someone is going to challenge for that ball every time it goes long. And it's the first time this season where we played a few more long, successful passes out from the goalkeeper because he's had someone to aim to. And, you know, prior to this game, we had Neil Maupay playing against 2 Wolves centre-back who are both 7 feet tall, and he was never going to win a header that game. So I think it did, long story short, I think it did live up to the billing, and I feel like it was quite an entertaining game for us, for Forest fans, and for the neutral who watched it.
Yeah, I think it has to be said as well, just to play devil's advocate, that Forest came into this game off the back of back-to-back wins against Newcastle United away and Man United at home. So it's not like and obviously the new manager bounce won't last forever with Nuno in charge. And they did have a lot of players at AFCON, and they did have Morgan Gibbs-White out and Alanga. But, you know, we did play well. I was surprised, a good point you mentioned about Flecken. I think Mopé's goal actually comes from Flecken to Toney, who then does a 1-2 with Ben Mee, I think it is. So he was distributing it quite nicely. But I guess I was surprised to see us still trying to play out from the back. But I guess that was kind of by virtue of the fact that we were playing 5 at the back as opposed to a 4-3-3. Whereas if we were playing a 4-3-3, we could lump it up to Toney, and then we got 2 runners on each side as opposed to just Maupay. Dan, let's just get on to Toney, because I feel like with the more people that I speak to, people have got different opinions about him. Obviously, we absolutely need him, and he's a great player. He scored 20 goals for us last season, accomplished Premier League striker now. But I feel like there's a bit of a demographic difference in, if you speak to some of the older fans now, I feel like they have a lot of problems with what Toney is saying in interviews. And don't get me wrong, I do too. They piss me off too. But I feel like I've spoken to a few people now, and they kind of say, do you know what? If someone comes in for the right money, we'd get rid of him. So Dan, what do you think? I'm going to ask you both a question that I was going to ask you in the middle. But Darren Lewis actually asked me the same question about the January transfer window and the potential for Toney to move before it shuts. He said if a club came in like Chelsea and offered you 80 million quid plus Armando Broja, who is reportedly Chelsea are reportedly willing to sell in this window. Would you take it, Dan?
No, I don't think so. I don't think any clubs are in a position to pay as much as we want at the moment, to be honest. I think whoever comes in might take some time to settle. They might not settle straight away. We know what we're getting with Ivan Toney. We'll know what he'll give us. We're in a position in the league where we do need him. I don't particularly like what he says about the club either, but it doesn't surprise me. I don't think he said anything new in the last couple of weeks that we didn't already know. I think when he talks about moving to a bigger club, you've got to think he didn't grow up as a Brentford fan. Obviously, he's grateful. I hope he's grateful to us for what we've done for him. But any footballer would want to play at the top if they can. And obviously, he's not particularly young, so he's going to want to do that. But he's not refusing to play. He seems to also, on the other hand, want to help the team. He's obviously got relationships with Thomas Frank and with the other players. And I think we'll get still a decent amount of money from him in the summer. I can't see him staying beyond that, but I think we'll get still a good amount of money that we can reinvest into a replacement. I don't think January is the best time for us to buy a replacement either, because if it's not included in the deal with whoever we sell, then obviously we'll need a replacement. So yeah, and there's not long left now either. So yeah, I just think I can't see it happening, and I think we need to just make sure we're staying up first.
Yeah, I think for sure, to say that his comments have pissed you off in an interview and that's the reason that you want to sell him, I feel like bigger picture might be needed, because if we do sell him, it's not guaranteed that whoever we get in is going to score as many goals or have the same presence on the pitch. And it's not just his goals either; it's his presence on the pitch. Like if we'd have lost that game on Saturday, I would have been so surprised, because it was build up. Ivan Toney's return. He's got a swagger about him. He's got a confidence about him. He can win balls. He can win duels. He can drag teammates through it. And to say that just because of a couple of comments and interviews, which I'm not saying are okay, I'd much rather he say, I want to play for Brentford, I want to help them, I want to repay them for the faith they've shown in me over the last 8 months whilst they've been paying my wages. To say that I'd rather sell him now and cash in and maybe take another hit at a different striker, I think it's a little bit short-sighted, just because I said to Darren Lewis, it's not guaranteeing survival, but with Toney fit for the rest of the season, you're giving yourself a pretty good chance, Craig.
Yeah, 100%. Let's, if we're going to talk about Ivan Toney, the thing we need to talk about is money as well. That's one of the biggest things that we need to touch on. Is 80 million now worth more than 130 million in the summer? Be it, I mean, we finished ninth last season, and we got 130 million pound in prize money for finishing ninth in the Premier League. So the risk now, even if he went, I don't think it's likely. The risk of us possibly going down is worth the 40 million pounds that we're going to lose between now and then. If we were saying we're going to sell him for 100 million now, but we sell him for 60 million in the summer, that to me is worth it over the hundreds of millions of pounds that we are going to earn by being in the Premier League. Yeah.
It is just so fucking annoying though. Just some of the comments that he makes, and then you see all the quote retweets, and it's like how Brentford fans love this guy so much. It's like, I do love him, but just because he's good at football, like not for any other reason. It's because he scores us goals and he's going to probably guarantee us Premier League survival. But it would just be nice for him to come out in an interview and say, I want to play at Brentford. I'll get this big money move, because we all know it's going to happen. But for now, I'm a Brentford player and I'm focused on my football at Brentford. I feel like in that interview that he did with Patrick Davison, he just missed out the at Brentford part and just said, I'm focused on my football and scoring goals. And it's just like, well, you know, that's only going to attract more fucking people to want to buy you in January.
I kind of imagine a video coming out like from Brentford on the 1st of February or something like that, where he said, I'm a Brentford player. And I just feel like they're scared to possibly say that in case someone stupid like Tom Bowley goes, here's 100 million. And then we look like idiots.
He said to Pontus on a call, didn't he, that he's staying?
He did. Yeah. But
would you have made
and then a few days later, he goes on an interview and says, if a top club comes in, he wants to play at the top level. But do you know what, Ivan? You handed out all these bloody interviews and no appearance on the Ealing Road podcast, so you can fucking do one, mate. Anyway, let's get on to the rest of the action before we talk about the January transfer window, relegation, big picture. I thought it was a nice little cameo from Region. Dan?
Yeah, I thought he should have started, to be honest. Even if he wasn't fully fit, I thought having someone natural on that left-hand side is better than not having a midfielder there, essentially. Also, I imagine he can't play against Spurs, so we're probably not going to see him for a couple of weeks now. So I thought, it would have been good for him to get more minutes in him on Sunday. He hasn't been injured as far as I know, so he would have just been a bit short of match sharpness. I understand he hadn't been with the players for many days, but when we haven't got any other left backs, I thought that he would have been a better option. And we're going to talk about Keane Lewis Potter in a minute, and I don't think it helped that he was kind of filling in that role when that's not where he plays.
Yeah, Craig, let's talk about KLP. As Dan mentioned, playing at left wing back, didn't really have I didn't think he had a touch in the first half, and then in the second half he has that very good chance, most clear-cut chance of the game, probably to make it. I think that would have made it 2-1. I think
so.
Yeah,
I want to say to make it 2-1, and he also has a chance where, to be fair, the other chance where he runs down the wing and then cuts it back. I thought he probably, if he'd just shown a bit more onus and just taken it on himself, he probably would have scored. He's back into scoring that situation, but. Yeah. I would like to see him play against Tottenham, and without talking about Tottenham too much, because we're going to do that at the end. Craig, what did you make of his performance? We're just putting that down to playing out of position.
We've had to do that for so many weeks with so many players about playing out of position. Very, very, very clearly not a left wing back, not a full back. Sam Angoda stepped in. He did a great job. Fantastic. Obviously, he kept getting caught out with that back post ball across the goal where we was conceding so many goals like that. And also fantastic to not concede a goal like that this week. But so very clearly not a fullback. And I know we scored from the resulting corner, but you've just mentioned it. I was so frustrated with how he didn't run direct. He was not direct enough for me this week compared to when we played Wolves at home and we lost 4-1. He was probably our best player that day. He was incredibly direct. And we said if we had someone like Ivan, we'd have scored a few more goals that day. But yeah, I think if we put it back down to him playing out of position for the majority of that game until Neil Maupay went off for Reguilon and he went up top. I think it's harsh to say that he didn't have a great game, which he didn't. It's just he's not a left back, very clearly, not a fullback, not a defensive player in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, 100%. Before we move on to the middle section of the podcast, anything else from the Forest game that either of you wanted to touch on?
Would you have made Toney captain?
Good question.
Probably not from what you've been saying.
The thing is, I feel like it adds to the storyline of it being inevitable that he's going to score. He's captain. It's his first game back. If I was Thomas Frank, which I'm not, if I was Thomas Frank, I wouldn't have given him the captaincy after the way he's conducted himself in interviews. I'd be telling him to get some fucking PR training more than anything. But especially with players like Ben Mee and other people, other senior players on the pitch, probably wasn't necessary. But again, it kind of boosts his ego even more. It makes him even more confident. It's his first game back in 8 months. He's leading the lads out. It just adds to that kind of narrative. Craig, what would you done?
To be honest, guys, it cut out for me for a second. I didn't actually hear what the question was.
He said, would you have made Ivan Toney captain?
I think it kind of stirred the pot a little bit and made him more up for it in the same way that you just explained. But I've watched the highlights back a couple of times just to try and see if I could pick up on little bits of his behaviour and things like that when he's on the pitch. And I've watched, obviously, by the goal he scores, which he looks like he's gesturing that he's staying. He does the I'm here kind of thing, I'm staying kind of thing. And then from the Ben Mee header, he's at the back post and you just see him turn to the West Stand and celebrating. and then the way he reacts with Neil after the goal as well. I feel like on the pitch, he's very much a Brentford player, and I don't have a problem with him being a captain. Off the pitch, he's a dickhead.
Do you know what I'm really looking forward? Well, I'm not looking forward to it at all, but the meltdown when Ivan Toney scores against us for the first time in the Premier League and he celebrates in front of the West End. And he celebrates because remember how bad Ollie Watkins got it? Oh my god.
He just sprinting down the pitch of the West End.
It's gonna be a fun day on Twitter. I always enjoy Brentford meltdown. It's always good fun. Let's move on to the middle section. Due to the winter break, not too many big storylines floating about at the moment in terms of the wider Premier League picture. So I thought we'd talk instead about the January transfer window, some Toney talk, which we've obviously already kind of covered, and the relegation picture. Dan, where else do we need to strengthen now? We've got a new left back that Frank's asked for, and now that Toney is back. I've seen that we're still in the running for Etikite from PSG on loan. Injuries coming back hopefully in the next month or two. Well, Norgard will be back sooner rather than later. Hickey was off in Switzerland skiing, so I don't know when he's back. Sharda, I still don't know when he's going to be back. And Brian, I think it's another couple of months. Do you have any worries that we'll spend unnecessarily in January and then have an influx of players to get rid of in the summer? Because I'm already looking at some of the players in our team and some of them are expendable, I'd say. But where do we need to strengthen, Dan, in your opinion?
I think this is also the area that we are trying to strengthen in, but someone to compete with Mbumo on the right-hand side, because on the left you've got KLP and Sharda. Obviously at front you've kind of got Toney, Morpay and Wissa, I suppose. I think we need another natural right winger to compete with Brian. Obviously, I know Brian's a tough person probably to displace, but you need another option up there. And I think that's what we have kind of been doing if you look at the targets we've had recently. I don't think we're the sort of club to panic buy or not plan things in advance. I hear even like with Regulon, I think we first made contact in November.
Yeah.
Obviously, we knew that would be an issue with Rico out. And also, we didn't want to bring in a permanent left back, I assume, because we know that there's not really a need for one if Rico's around. And it's very difficult to get someone who wants to be backup because Rico's not going to be out of our team. So, yeah, maybe that kind of right winger, but it wouldn't surprise me if we don't do anything. I think Ekitike can play across the front line, as far as I know. But I also think he's in talks with Frankfurt in Germany, and I think he's closer to joining them than us. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think we'll do anything else, to be honest with you.
Don't think we'll do anything else, really?
I don't think we'll do anything else before the end of January. We've got like a week now. I just can't see it.
Yeah, Craig, new goalkeeper.
Yeah, only if like Peter Schmeichel wants to come out of retirement or something like that. Chuck him in net. Bring back Stuart Nelson. What happened to that young lad from Betis that we was looking at? There was loads of talk that we put a bid in for him, and then all of a sudden, that young lad from Betis was named
Hassan Diao, something like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I did see that. Yeah. I don't think there was anything in that. I'm not sure there was anything in that.
Well, the new rumours are that we put in a new bid matching his release clause. How true that is up for debate also. But yeah, I'm kind of with Dan. I don't think we need anyone.
No. Okay. All right. I would have thought we might need another option up top, but I guess we are kind of covering that if we're pursuing players like Ekitike. But it is a difficult one because we do have players coming back and we aren't ones to panic buy, as you shrewdly pointed out, Dan. I do. Let's talk about the wider context of the win on Saturday. Teams close to us in the table with Toney back and with cover at left back now. How are you feeling in terms of the bigger picture, Dan? Obviously, we've got games against Spurs, City twice, and Liverpool coming up, as Craig mentioned at the top. are the teams below us going to be the difference in terms of whether we stay up or not? Or are you now hopeful that off the back of this win, we can build on something? I would be if we'd have kind of swept Forest away in the fashion that I thought we might after getting a goal. But I feel like that first goal really killed the game. And then from then, like you said, it was end to end. But it wasn't like a performance that I come away with saying, oh, yeah, no, we're going to be fine now.
Yeah, it might get a bit worse before it gets better looking at our upcoming games, especially as we still look quite weak defensively. And if we line up even with that back five that still looks weak defensively against the likes of Tottenham and City twice and Liverpool, then we could be on the end of quite a heavy defeat. But there is a period, I think, around the start of April. Our running this season, I remember last season it looked very difficult on paper. Our running this season is much nicer. But obviously you never know what can happen when you get to around April time, if we're very close to it, with nerves and things like that. But you're hoping that by then we have a full squad near enough back. And by then we'll have enough to at least win, some of the home games we've got coming up, against like Sheffield United, and teams like that. So I do think we'll be fine. I don't think we'll actually need that many points. I don't think the bottom three this year very strong. I think it's a good year to probably struggle, to be honest. But yeah, I think it might get a bit worse in the next month and then improve.
Craig, you're laughing.
Yeah, I was looking. I didn't realise what's a terrible run of fixtures we've got coming up. Dan, great point. Our last 6 games of the season consist of Sheffield United at home, Luton away, Everton at home, Everton away, Fulham, Bournemouth, and Newcastle. But our next 12 games, if we get, I'm really worried if Brentford fans are going to
go on, rattle them off. Rattle them off.
Spurs away, City at home, Wolves away, and then we've got Liverpool and City back to back at home and away. Then we've got a winnable game at West Ham, and then we play Chelsea and Arsenal. What's that? Sorry.
Always winnable at West Ham.
Always win at West Ham, yeah. And we've got Chelsea and Arsenal back to back, and we've got Burnley away, which should be a winnable game, and then we've got United at home, Brighton at home, and Villa away. So it's these next 12 games.
Yikes!
If we can get through these next 12 games and be 10 points above the bottom 3 by the time we get through these 12 games, we will be fine. However, we're 6 points above that bottom 3 now, and I don't see us getting 6 points in 12 games, unfortunately.
Hey, let's talk about the next game, because I'm quietly confident for Spurs. Genuinely, you might think I'm mental, but I want us to play back forward. I think we will, obviously, but Toney will be back. Can't see us changing the lineup too drastically. Maybe apart from Aya coming in at right back, and hopefully Christian Norgard will be fit to start. Dan, how you feeling? The only reason I say I'm confident is because in some ways I feel like it's a perfect game for Toney. We know Postecoglou likes to play attacking football sometimes at the expense of defensive solidarity, and teams that play against the Postecoglou side genuinely tend to get a lot of chances. I remember watching the Bournemouth game, and I feel like Bournemouth had loads of chances against them. In that respect, I'm not confident, but it's not a game that I look at in the terms of the next 12 with regards to something like City away. I'm not sure we've got any chance of doing what we did last year, but Tottenham away, it's not really a ground we performed well. Well, I know we won there last year, but the year before, I remember we played them on a Wednesday night and it was incredibly flat. We didn't get going at all. But how are you feeling in terms of that game, Dan?
Well, first of all, I think it'll be a 5 again because we've still got that left back problem if Reguilon can't play. And I think that's the issue. Who plays there? Because I wouldn't put Lewis Potter there again. It would make sense to probably put Yanelt there if Norgard's back. Obviously, that is contingent on Norgard being back. Otherwise, Yanelt's probably needed in the middle. Possibly De Silva coming in as well. Maybe for someone like Damsgaard. It will hinge on how our defense holds up, I think. Obviously, they'll bring a lot of their strength is normally pace, to be fair, and someone like Werner likes to run in behind. I don't think we'll leave much space for that to happen. I think we'll go into a low block quite a lot. So I think we'll be quite difficult to beat in that sense. But they do have quality. If they still don't have Maddison and they don't have Son, then I think that increases our chances, because then they don't really have maybe like a quality attacker.
Son's at the Asian
Son's
Cup,
at Asian Cup. Yeah.
Yeah. So I assume he won't be back by then, because it's not that far away, is it? So yeah, I don't know when Madison's back. I know they've got their centre backs back though, so
Yeah,
defensively they'll be there. But
they've got Son, Sarr, Bissouma all away at Asian Cup / AFCON, but Højbjerg is in for Sarr, and Bentancur's come back from injury, and Skip did really well against United in the last game, and they've also bought Werner, Dragusin, Van de Ven is fit again, who I thought was a really good player. Although, Van de Ven, right? When we played them on the first day of the season, I actually thought he looked really, really defensively shaky. And then kind of since then, everyone's raving about him, saying he's one of the best centre-halves in the Premier League. But who knows? Lots of firepower in the side, so it's going to be tough. Craig, what are you thinking ahead of the game? I'm always trying to be an optimist, and I really do feel like, I don't know why, but I reckon we might be able to nick something.
If I edge to the side of optimism, then yeah, maybe we could get something. If KLP plays as a left wing back, I don't think we'll have much success going forwards, because Maupay just doesn't have the pace to be able to. They play such a high line. We saw it. The game that I'm thinking of is Chelsea, when Chelsea done them 4-1, and they had 9 men and they were still playing on the halfway line. So if we can get KLP to make runs from deep, and we can breach that high line, then I think we'll have a lot of success, especially with a player of Ivan Toney's caliber stepping in the way he did against Forest. But if he plays left wing back, funnily enough, I think he's the player that this game is hinging on. I think KLP's the player this game is hinging on, because we need a pacey forward to be able to break that line that they're going to play. And I love Neil Maupay, but he's not that player. He's not the player to be able to beat someone for pace. Has to be Keane Lewis Potter.
There was a point in the game against Forest. Ivan Toney played it to Neil Maupay, and he tried to sidestep the Forest centre half, and it just went so terribly wrong. He just does not have that burst of pace. But look, I think I've solved it. You stick Iron at right back. You go for either Collins, Pinnock, or me in the 2 centre half positions. Stick Janelt at left back. You go Jensen, Damsgaard, or De Silva, or KLP. Oh no, not Damsgaard or De Silva. Jensen, Damsgaard, De Silva, or Norgard if he's fit in the middle, and then you go KLP on the left, Tony up top, Maupay on the right. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I reckon we go with a back four. Yeah, this is going to be so out there. This is a joke, by the way, before people get mad at me.
He said about
left back. Janelt left back. Aya right back. Go Ethan Pinnock, Ben Mee, and play Nathan Collins at a defensive midfield. Just chuck him in front of them and let Jensen and Silva run around.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that. He's got John Stones-esque kind of ball playing centre half ability about him. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Thomas, if you're listening, mate, you heard it here on the Ealing Road podcast.
It's not going to happen.
I've got my whiteboard somewhere out the back if Thomas needs a few hints.
Exactly, it's not going to happen. But I mean, in these games, we've said it so many times on the podcast before. We just got nothing to lose, especially if you look at the next 12 games. We may as well try and win one of the games against the Big Six. Like, we had such a great record against them last year. Granted, we didn't have all the injuries that we have this year, but I think we low block and we try and defend against Tottenham for 90 minutes. You've seen how ruthless they can be in front of goal this season, even without the likes of Son. So it's going to be tough. So it would be disappointing if we set up in a 5 and we get battered the whole game, especially with just Toney and Maupay up top. There's not really a counter-attacking outlet in that, especially if KLP's pushed all the way back to left wing back. So we shall see. But it promises to be a good game. We've got over a week until the game. And yeah, it's going to be good. Remember, just before we get going, guys, drop the comments below. I mentioned at the top of the show, I want to see more people in the comments interacting with what we're saying. Get some questions in for the next guy. I'm going to get a Spurs podcast on probably this weekend. So keep your eyes peeled across socials for that. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Leave a rating as well, as it helps us out massively. And also give us a follow on our socials, as at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Craig, Dan, it's been a pleasure, and we shall see you next week.